All right, well, today we're back to work on upgrading and outfitting my 30 by 50 home workshop here. We are on the tail end of what is by far the biggest project of them all, and really one of the most important. We had to get this one done before we could do any of the other stuff we wanted to do. And it's been a long time coming, but we're finally almost wrapped up with building our mezzanines. So quite a bit ago, we put the 3-car stacker in. The idea here is that we have 3 separate storage areas that are independent of one another. So this loft is basically going to just be storage. Bulk items, shelves, pallets, all of that stuff is going to go up there. The middle is obviously cars. We're able to fit 3 cars there. We have the back door. We're not blocking it. Works out perfect. And then this loft is going to be a small hangout area, a work area, and then small parts storage, consumables, things like that are all going to go up there. So that way each area is independent, which makes it a little bit easier to keep them organized. So far everything is panning out, honestly, better than I even could have hoped. And we are on the home stretch. We've got a few loose ends to tidy up, to finish up on the structure side of things, and then one very large last minute change of plans loose end. And then it's time to get into the fun stuff. The part I'm most excited about, which is outfitting them. You know, we gotta do lighting underneath, we gotta do wiring to set up outlets, we've gotta do the aesthetic flooring. We have to put everything up there and set it all up. Set up the hangout area, set up the storage area, and basically take these from being just a pair of empty loft structures to fully functioning mezzanines, and finally get to put the shop back together because we've got everything crammed into my race trailer at the moment. So as I said, this is the part I've been looking forward to the most. It should be a pretty exciting and drastic transformation from start to finish. So I'm excited to get into it. All right, well, before we get too deep into the thick of it, because we got a lot of work to do, some messy projects, some backwards working to move forwards again, we got stuff. I wanted to talk to you about today's video sponsor, Upside. So Upside is a free app that allows you to get cash back on your day-to-day essentials. Things like groceries, restaurants, gas, that's a big one. We like cars. Cars use gas, and a lot of it. So the cool thing for me is that it's legit cash back. I hate the whole points thing or credits. You can only use it here, and the points, you don't even know what they equate to. It doesn't make sense. It's just complicated, convoluted. I just don't like dealing with it. But cashback is simple, and then I can use that on the things I actually want to spend money on. So for me, it's amazing because I try to keep the cars in rotation, keep them limber, drive them around, and the only problem with that is it seems like every time I go to drive a car that hasn't been driven in a bit, it's got an empty tank of fuel. And then I gotta go to the gas station and fill it up. But to be able to earn cash back while I'm doing that, it just makes it a little bit sweeter, especially because I get to use it at my favorite gas station. I mean, there's literally people making as much as $300 a month on Upside. So if you're interested in seeing how much you could earn, click the link down below to download the Upside app and then use the code Taylor to get an extra 25 cents off for every gallon on your first tank. It's a great way to get yourself a cheap tank of gas and just try it out firsthand. Use it, see what you think for yourself. So that being said, as I mentioned, we got a lot of work to do, and we added some more work to try to upgrade, and yeah, we got a lot of work to do, so we should get back into it. All right, so before we get into the fun stuff, loose ends that I mentioned. So there's a couple things we have to finish on the structure that we just haven't done yet. These brackets go underneath to support the floating floor joints. So we need to add those in, bolt those in. We've got to finish anchoring this one down and then do a final nut and bolt check on the frame. But more important than those, more pressing, is the flooring. So we decided to double up the flooring to increase our load rating. There's a lot of questions, comments, and concerns on the floating joints, which I understand because when I started installing the first row, I had some questions, comments, and concerns myself. I triple checked the instructions to confirm that that is how we were supposed to do it. And once we started putting it together, it made sense, and those concerns were mostly alleviated. Basically, the reason to do it the way we did it, where you do end up with some or a lot of the joints floating, is to conserve material based on the beam spacing, since it's not even throughout. To land on a beam with every single joint, we basically have to use an extra 3 boards on this mezzanine and an extra 5 on that one, which we did not have enough to do. So we decided to just go with the instructions. I mean, they are the ones who engineered and designed it. And again, once they started putting it together, it kind of made more sense. At first, I was thinking of this joint as being that it's tongue and groove. They are tied together, but just being tied together here. But then as you start to add the other panels, you realize that they're also tied together on both sides. Basically, they're tied into this board and tied into this board. So even if I took this board out of the way, this would still have support from both sides. So they're actually a lot more structurally sound than you might think. And that's why really the most important thing was that we staggered the joints. We didn't have the joints in a line, so that way the boards to the side of the joints are helping support the joint, and then again those brackets go underneath. So all in all, joint-wise, I'm not worried about it. It's stout. You don't feel any extra compression on the joints, any creaks, any groans. Feels pretty much the same everywhere. Now, that being said, obviously you see the pallet full of plywood, so we are changing it for a reason. I started to go back through the data sheet and determine our load rating, because it does change since these are size adjustable. You know, the longer you go, the wider you go, it changes. The load rating per square foot, and I realized the load rating was a little bit low for how much stuff we're realistically planning on putting up there, and then obviously there's always going to be more that you don't account for, which I'm trying to account for. And what it boils down to is, at the end of the day, the 4 is our limiting factor on load rating. The structure can handle about double what the 4 can handle. So if we make a stronger 4, then we have a much higher load rating. And it's a pretty easy and simple way to get at that extra load rating and that extra headroom on what we can put up there, how we can spread it out, all of that, just more peace of mind overall. And if there's any time to do it, now's the time to do it. So, well, in reality, for our purposes, probably be fine the way it is. For my peace of mind and for your peace of mind, I know y'all were worried about those floating joints. We're gonna go ahead and add another layer. So we've got 3/4 inch 4x8 sheets of plywood, and we're gonna run them this way. So basically our seams are this way and then this way. Each layer is supporting the seams of the other layer. So it should be plenty stout now and still look nice and be a good surface that we can finish out. So that being said, it was a little bit of a wrench, a little bit of a curveball. So I need to quit jibber jabbering. We need to get to work so we can knock this out and get into the stuff that we're actually planning on working on. So let's get to it. Beam me up, Sean Sway.
Where you going?
Yeah. Harder left. Bring it on in, son. No, yeah, that way. Yeah, like that. Just the tiniest bit. We got it like an inch. Beautiful. Right there. That should be like a spot where we don't have to move it after this. So we decided this one's all the wrong way.
How does it feel?
Solid. Come stand on it. It doesn't feel like it's going to budge at all when you're on this, whereas when you're over here, even in the middle though, like even with no joint, it flexes. Solid. So after our incredibly scientific stomp test to confirm that this was gonna work, which we already knew it was gonna work, you gotta, sometimes you gotta remind yourself why you're doing all this extra work. And that was a good reminder, because it feels stout just having the board with a few screws in it. So we started working our way down. The problem is we need to cut 2-foot sections, and we could just go ahead and cut all the 2-foot sections, but we want to get them just right, and there might be a variance of an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch, and if we can add that variance into our cut and make sure we have a nice straight line all the way down, we're going to do it. But that means going up and down a lot more times. So we tried to get a few of the 8-foot sections in there first, so that way we could take our individual measurements for each 2-foot-ish piece and then cut them all individually, so they're tailored to fit in each gap perfectly. So since this is 10 feet wide, we need 8 feet and 2 feet. So basically what we did was just flip-flop the boards. So you've got the 2, then the 8, then the 8, then the 2. So that way our seams aren't running, with each other all the way down, trying to stagger them and keep the strength as best we can.
You can't unseat a bow.
Get out of here. Get that. That's what they make tools for, Josue. This is a... You better not tap it. You're going to break the edge. You're going to break our joint.
doing it some more now.
I tried to hand you a tool. See, there's still sawdust. What is that? What is that?
Isn't that a Sharpie at that? That should go on everything.
Well, it would if the surface was prepped correctly. So after Clay busted each other's chops a little bit, we went ahead and got ready to cut this last board into shape. As you can see, we had about an inch left, so they weren't all exactly 24 inches. They were just a little bit shy of that. So it worked out that we measured each one individually to install them for this last row that's full width. But now we have not necessarily a problem, but basically we need about 12 inches for this very, very last row. It's just a little bit shy of 4 sheets covering the whole thing. So we're going to cut that off of this full sheet of plywood because we want to retain the joint. Now, the only problem is we can't get the 2-foot section out of this same board if we want to have the joint. Since these are tongue and groove, as soon as we cut it anywhere else, we lose that joint. And we want the joint because the joint is what makes these as strong as they are, or if we're going to be redoing this or going to be adding another layer of wood, we want to make sure it is as stout as possible. So we basically got 2 extra boards for this end piece just to cut a 8-foot section that's 1 foot wide and then a 2-foot long, 1 foot wide section for the end. But it will make sense later when we get to the other frame because it's dual purpose. All right, well, aside from screwing around, literally and figuratively. Say it.
I ain't going nowhere.
You said that once before. I mean, I'm glad that we were able to get tongue and groove. That makes me feel even better about it. Now it's like this joint's tied together. Oh yeah, dude, this thing is not going. It's definitely solid now. That's one platform done. Nice large pieces, staggered joints, tongue and groove. Feel the whole shop shake when you stomp on this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely added that bit of confidence that it ain't going nowhere. These are just truss screws, or truss bracket screws. So we still need to go through and screw all of these in more with different screws. So we'll have to replace all those screws, but pretty much done. I want to go ahead and get the other side laid out before we bother, taking all the time to go screw this in further. But it looks good. Happy with that, especially once we cover it. Won't even notice.
Solid.
Should have went with OSB.
There's no way.
It says OSB has 2 times the, I forget which direction shrink. I don't trust that, man. OSB has always seemed so fragile to me. I don't see how it could possibly be stronger than this. Because it's like I've seen like a piece of OSB that's a little weathered and I can just break the corner off it. Whereas I've never been able to do that with plywood by just hand, I don't know, maybe that's big lumber. Big lumber lies to sell more OSB, I don't know. But in my opinion, this definitely seems like the more solid option.
I think that's the right stuff.
So for this side, we kind of have the same problem, basically, where we don't need a full board for the end. So to try to make the most of those extra boards and not waste nearly 2 boards for the last row on the larger loft, we're going to be flip-flopping the joint. So we went ahead and cut off the tongue part for this one, so we're going to run that at the front, and we're going to basically end on a different joint so we can use the other side of those extra boards, and that way hopefully we should be able to get that last row out of the same 2 boards that we got the last row on the large loft out of, and then there's very, very minimal waste. Still some waste, not a ton of waste. So we got straight to work. Again, went ahead and cut the tongue off so that way the joints are flowing the opposite direction, so we have that other side, which is the other joint, and just started working our way down. This one's a little trickier because getting the boards up there, we don't have that big open access that we do on the large loft to lift them up there with R2 because the staircase is there. And that's exactly why we didn't put a staircase on that side and why that side is the storage area, because it's very easy to get up there and get things up there with R2, but it was not very easy to do that on the stairwell side. Smaller stuff, sure, but this large, wide 4x8 pieces, not really going to happen. So fortunately, this side's going together nice and smooth. The tongue and groove on this plywood is definitely nowhere near as nice and as refined as the plywood that came with the loft for the flooring. That stuff tucked up nice and tight, no gaps whatsoever, whereas these, it seemed like you kind of had to live with about an 1/8 inch gap. There was just no good way to get it any tighter than that without damaging the next joint. So we're on to the final row. It's about 32 inches, so a little less than 3 feet. So we have just enough of the old 2 boards that we used on the other one to make this last row, which is perfect. It's exactly how I was hoping all of this would play out, but you know, sometimes you do that mental math in your head and then you realize you're wrong. You got an extra board, or you got, you know, you're a board shy and you can't finish the project, and it's nothing worse than not being able to finish your project because you didn't count right. Didn't math. The math didn't math. With both decks complete, we had kind of an awkward shaped piece of plywood left, so I went ahead and cut the already cut piece off, and then I realized that we had enough to make a new stand-on pallet for R2. So I got this pallet with my engine that I bought recently from LME, and it is the perfect size for this. With these walkie stackers, you have the legs, so some pallets don't fit in between them. So usually we have to use a pallet that's a little bit on the small side, but this one was a perfect size where it was just small enough to fit between the legs, but plenty big enough. So nice new stand-on work-off pallet, and you know, strengthens it up some. So we got our screws. We had to go buy some from the store. I just didn't have quite the right length. So now it's time to just go to town, put these impacts to work, and put a bunch of screws in this thing. Grab some more. You ho, sway. Oh, oh. I'm sure you've never heard that one before.
I'm still laughing.
I'm just gonna go put some in the center of those boards over there.
Touchdown.
All right, Josue's working on putting our support brackets on. So basically we'll be running them down the middle and then also at any floating joint as well. But first thing down the middle, then floating joints, second priority. But our floors structurally are officially done and dusted, literally. But yeah, made a massive difference. It is so solid now. This thing is, I mean, I don't know if it'll transition or transfer on camera, but it is one. There is no flex, no give anywhere on this thing. It doesn't get much stouter, I don't think. I have every bit of confidence in putting, whatever we need to put up here. My biggest concern with the load rating wasn't the overall weight that we're gonna put on here. It was the concentrated weight, because how I envision setting up this back corner. I won't know if it's gonna work out that way until I start putting this stuff up here, but it'd be a good bit of weight in kind of a concentrated area, which with the old floor, we might have gone over the load rating per square foot, even if we're well under the load rating for the actual structure itself. Because basically your load rating per square foot is any square foot. So, at the corner, you technically have a lot more strength than floating in between two beams, but it's basically the minimum number. So again, for both, we should be well under our max weight rating, but I was worried about just certain spots having a lot of weight in a concentrated area, and now, definitely not worried, because that is stout. We could have, I ain't going nowhere. You gotta say it, it's critical. The brackets look nice. Anyway, next up, now that the structural floors are done, the subfloors, we can start working on the aesthetic part of the floors. So on this side, we're gonna paint it because there's gonna be heavy stuff moved around on them and slid around on them. But on this side, we're gonna go with carpet because carpet isn't something you would ever have in a shop. So it'd be kind of cool to have a little carpeted area where you can take your shoes off, and I don't know, it just seems neat. The cold, hard aspect of the rest of the shop to have a little bit of like a cozy space, that's the idea. But we'll see how it pans out in reality once we get it installed. So what I have for that is in these 3 boxes here.
Let's see what that carpet looks like.
All right, I'll open it for you. I'll open it.
Now it's like, do they lock in or?
No.
Oh, we talked about it. It's double-sided.
Yeah, it's tape.
Oh, no.
So these should like lay down and then. So yeah, my granddad's garage, well, in the basement, they had this and it was gray and red checkerboard. So with this, I decided to do checkerboard, but the quantity was weird. Basically, 15 tiles come in a box. We need 35. I had to order 45 because we needed 35. But if I wanted to do gray checkerboard the whole thing, then I would have needed 60, even though I only need 35. So I decided what I'm gonna do is black around the perimeter and then gray checkerboard on like the inside. Like just in like the middle of the square.
So the other color should be what?
Gray.
Okay.
And then black right here, there it is.
That's great.
Yeah.
Some would say that's great.
A little checkerboard action, you know? But in the center, in the perimeter.
Nice.
Which I think will look better anyway than just checkerboarding the whole thing. At least that's what I'm telling myself to feel better about not being able to checkerboard the whole thing. These are really light too.
Good compromise.
What?
Good compromise. How's that glue on that? I wasn't gonna bring that up yet.
How's what?
See how it sticks. What is the arrow?
I don't know, that's what I was just looking at.
Maybe to follow the direction.
I think it should be right at 5 wide. Because we're 10 feet wide. But I think we're gonna have like a little bit on the edge. So we went ahead and started prepping the smaller loft for laying down the carpet. We needed to get it leaf blown off, get pretty much any bit of dust out of here because these are gonna glue on. And while Raldo is working on that and setting up the pattern, I went ahead and jumped back onto the larger structure to help Josue with the finishing touches, like anchoring these posts, something I should have done a few steps ago, but I just got excited for the future steps and I kept forgetting. So I wanted to get that done before I forgot again. And Raldo was going to play with some different layouts and configurations of the colors here. So he started out with my idea of doing the perimeter black and then doing checkerboard in the middle, but I kind of miscounted on the rows. I thought it was 7 rows, but it's actually 7 1/4. The last row needs to be 7 inches. So that ended up putting us limited on the black carpet tiles, and then it just didn't look right. I didn't like it, and we both agreed that doing checkerboard on the whole thing would be best. It's optimal. It looked the best after we mocked it up. So the only caveat is we can't do the very last row in checkerboard. The last row is going to have to be one solid color, but it's most likely going to be covered anyway, and lesser of two, we decided to go this route. Now, the only tricky thing here is that the backing tape on the gray panels, it just did not want to come off, and it was peeling off the glue, which I'm already kind of worried about how well these are going to hold together. So hopefully long term that doesn't become a problem, but otherwise they were laying down really nicely. I was worried they might get out of square easily and we'd end up having gaps or having to, trim the panels to get them to line back up, but we're well over halfway and they're all laying down nicely. It's just fighting that backing paper that's taken a little bit of a time, but so far it's looking really good. It's coming out pretty much exactly like the vision I had in my head. So now we're on to that final quarter of a row, and I just cannot come up with a good way to cut this carpet and make sure it's a nice straight cut. It's just nothing seemed like it was going to work great, so I decided to freehand it and just cut them with a razor and hope for the best. And fortunately, they overhang just a little bit on the back here, and then we can trim them to the final shape. So we had enough to use a factory edge all the way around where they meet up with the previous row. So while I was doing all of this, Josue was hard at work on painting the other loft. We basically took, that was his loft to do, and this was mine. So as I mentioned, we're painting it black. I did debate painting it some sort of gray or doing, if I was going to go that route, doing an epoxy floor, kind of like what we have on the shop floor, but that's commercial grade stuff. We can't really get that. The stuff we can get isn't as strong. I wasn't sure how well it would work on wood. And at the end of the day, the black blends in. It's kind of just camouflage. That's what we wanted out of these. We don't want these to necessarily stand out and be in your face, that the idea is just to have them blend in with everything else. Not to mention, we use this black paint for a lot of things. I've painted my trailer with this paint a couple times, brackets and other boards for shelves that we make. So, we're always going to have this paint around. If we ever tear it up, scuff it, mess it up, and we need to touch it up, we won't even have to go to the store because guaranteed we got a can of it sitting somewhere. So for me, it was the obvious choice. So Josue's hammering out painting this thing. Obviously, the perimeter takes just as long, if not longer than the rest of it, rolling the rest of it. And especially this front edge, because we want that to be painted so you don't see the wood color. And really, we're probably going to want to go back and do that on the side and on the other one as well. But the trickiest part is just the fact that you're painting the only thing you can stand on to paint it. So I brought R2 up so we had something to work from. All right, let me test it out real quick.
Send it.
All right, let me go get you down.
Get me down from here.
All right, well, the floors are done. Super happy with how this came out. They all fit together pretty nicely, aside from the gray ones, the backing sticking, but it feels nice. It's such an interesting feeling to walk on carpet in a shop. I'll take you back to the corner here. Oh yeah, it's so cool with the car there and the carpet. I know some of you, this is gonna drive you nuts, but two things. One, there's gonna be stuff back here. Two, just the way it worked out. Basically, to do the checkerboard all the way down, not even counting these quarter rows back here, it would have been 17 pieces of one color and 18 pieces of the other color, which they come in packs of 15. So I'd have to order 30 of each, to do it that way. So my plan was actually to perimeter black and then just checkerboard the middle, but it just looked kind of goofy, and we had just enough to checkerboard everything but the back row and a quarter. So I'm happy with it. I think it looks great. Oh, so satisfying. I got to do it. Oh yeah. Hat. Oh, that's nice. What a feeling to lay on carpet in my shop. Oh, this is coming out so much better than I ever could have hoped, man. I'm so happy. All right, one more look at this one, and now let's go look at Josue's side. I know we got some touch-up work to do. I didn't get him rollers with, the thick enough rollers. I got drywall rollers. So we'll need to come back and kind of just fill in the cracks, the gaps in between the boards. But otherwise it looks really good. It's nice to see it one color, not wood colored. If you haven't noticed, I'm not the biggest fan of wood, unless it's like ornate. No, that looks great. It's literally just these cracks. I'll just have to try to get in here with a paintbrush and fill in those cracks, because they do stand out for sure. But yeah, that's this side. Boom, painted. All right, well, aside from filling in these cracks, these two are effectively ready to have stuff put on them, but we still got some work to do underneath. Let's go back down. We do still also have to build our bridge back here. I need to go get material for that. We're gonna build a little bridge, a little causeway between the two up and over the roll-up door, which will be pretty nice. Nice, easy way to skip back and forth between them. But anyway, oh man, it's so good. It's so satisfying. That method worked out really well. Being able to get carpet up here, it's simple, it's easy to replace. If we do stain it with something, we can just rip up that panel and put a new one down. Hopefully if it does happen, it's a black panel, not a gray panel, because don't have any more of those, but better than nothing. So next up, we need to work on lighting underneath. As you can see, it is quite dark under here. So yeah, we need to get that set up because they're completely unusable right now. It's so dark in here. This one's not as bad as that one, but it's not an effectively lit work area. So there's no point in putting any of our stuff under here yet. But to get the stuff that we're gonna put up there and up here, we have to empty out the trailer. But if we empty out the trailer, the rest of the stuff that's not going up there has gotta go somewhere. So Moral of the story is, we need to put our lights in. Now luckily, when we did this building, I saved all my lights and all my lighting stuff from the old building, and we did all new lighting in this building. We did these 4-foot high bays, which actually worked out great. But because of that, I had leftover lighting. I saved all of it. So I want to test one out before I commit and go nicely wire them all up. But we should have the lights we need to do this nicely. Have plenty of light underneath these lofts. Well, we have 9 of them, but I think 6 of them, 3 on each side, is going to be plenty. But yeah, they've been in the container a while. I think we should probably clean them up first. All right, so I want to mock up just one of these. That way we can see, these might be too bright for how low they are. I had them, the other shop ceilings were 11.5 feet. They were pretty bright. We're just gonna use this so I don't run conduit up there to it and then find out they're not gonna work out. All right, well, I think our first light was a dud. I do remember there being one that never quite worked right. It was probably that one, of course, the one I picked. Now for the moment of truth. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, I think that's going to be perfect, though. They're tucked up there enough to where I feel like they're not distracting too much, brightness-wise. That is bright. That is bright. 3 of them should be perfect to spread the light out low enough. It's always hard to tell because you're like, you're looking up at it like, is this gonna blind me? Be annoying? But the reality is, are you really gonna do that in real life? No, that's perfect. Especially if you stand back here at eye level, pretty much disappears. Sick, all right, well, we got to go ahead. We need to go dig another light out, make sure it works, and then start hanging and wiring them. Let's get to it. One side hung. All right, well, we've got all of our lights mounted up. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I debated a few different ways of lighting up underneath these before we ever even got them built. And, I was thinking about running the long 8-foot ones that tie together on the beams or something, and I thought about a bunch of different ways, but then I realized I had these, and I really like how it turned out because they're tucked up in there with the beams, so they kind of blend in, you know? If you step back a little bit, they pretty much disappear. Whereas the other ones would be kind of sticking out like a sore thumb, and you'd see the light from outside. And anyway, I think this is definitely the best option. We should have plenty of light, should cast well. There's a lot of light for this area, so that being said, we won't really know until we try. And to try, we've got to wire them. So what we're going to be doing is basically eliminating one of these outlets, using that to power the lights. So we're going to switch this box up to where it'll just be 2 outlets and then a switch with a dimmer in case we want to dim them, in case they're too bright. And then we're going to run legit conduit up, bend it all nice to a box. I'm pretty excited about that. I've always taken the easy way out with flexible conduit, but I got myself a conduit bender. We're gonna do this the right way. I got just wire. Should be a lot cleaner. Now, that being said, just to test them out, we'll probably take the easy way out and just wire them up to this so we can switch them on and see what they look like. But we still gotta wire them together and get that all done. So we're gonna start there, and then maybe we'll try them out before we dig into the actual shop wiring, you know, because that's a whole process. So I just want to see. We need that instant gratification, you know? I want to see what they look like. So should probably quit jibber jabbering, get back to work. Let's get to it. So for tying these together, I'm just using this pre-wrapped cord. I thought about using hard conduit since we're going to use that for going up to them and to the outlets on the hangout loft, but you know, then we got to drill larger holes in our beams, and this stuff just worked out perfect. It feels kind of like the easy way out, which I'm trying not to do, you know, in my past with wiring. I've always done it correctly, but I've definitely taken the simplest route, and I want to, you know, do it nice so that way I can look up at it and see the satisfying, fancy, organized setup. But this is, you know, a good in between, because sometimes you got to compromise, you know? You can't always do things the super hard way. Sometimes you got to take the medium way, and this is the medium way. Now, these are a little bit tricky to deal with because of the connectors that connect into the wiring. They just didn't want to grab this stranded wire that well, so I had to fight it a little bit, but we've got them all connected, so see if they work. Alright, let's move the ladder so we can try this out. Before we go securing all of our wires. Whoa, yeah, oh, that is perfect, dude. That's, I mean, probably brighter under here than it used to be in this area. Yeah, we got no shadowy spots. Oh yeah, that's perfect. This is gonna be real nice for doing fab work. Being able to see everything. Oh, sick. All right, let's see what it looks like from back here. Oh yeah, it looks good. It's well lit, but it's not any bit overpowering, you know? It doesn't look way brighter under there than everywhere else. Maybe a little bit brighter. But other than that, it was pretty good. Plenty of light, as I was hoping. As I kind of figured. I mean, I had, I think, 3 rows of 3 of these in the open portion of the old shop, and one was out forever, which was that broken one, that first one I tested. And it was fine. It was like plenty of light. Sweet, okay, cool. Well, let's clean these wires up all nice and pretty, and then we'll knock out the other one. It's wiring, and then we can get into the shop wiring. But obviously, you know, we gotta test that one out too. All right, well, I kind of screwed up. I ran out of wire. Thought I had enough, but I didn't. So, we're going to see what these 2 look like at least, because I got to go to the store and get more. Moment of truth. Take 4. I don't know how many times we've had a moment of truth. Oh, I need like 4 feet more wire. This will be interesting because this one has stuff. Oh, let me set you back here. All right, up into action. All right, let's do it. Oh yeah, definitely got to get that third one. You know, like we just had these two, but not be enough. It's kind of hard to get a visual now because that one's off, so you've got like that dark area in the back. But where the lights are, it is super well lit. See there, if you look at the shelf, you're looking for something on the shelf, it's all bright and lit up. So, sweet. I think we made the right choice with these lights. And again, I already had them, so it definitely made sense in that aspect. I've been kind of itching to use them for something, so they weren't just sitting around in the container. And perfect project, so sweet. Well, that being said, I have got to go to the store to get more of that wire to start wiring, to wire that last one together, and then we can start digging into the shop wiring. But we are unfortunately out of time for this episode because of a lot of reasons. The second layer of flooring was a little bit of a unexpected detour, you know? So that took a little longer. I thought we'd be further along. 2, we're waiting on furniture to really properly finish it out and start setting everything up there. I've got a couple more decisions to make on what we're gonna put up there or not on the hangout side. 3, though, the weather is really nice, which it has been rain every afternoon, evening for the last several months. And we finally have a few nice days. And my boat's been broken. I broke the steering column. Oh, I have it over here. Let me show you. It's kind of crazy. This is the box for the replacement, which I just needed the gearbox. If you look, oh, there's a tooth for the ring and pinion. Basically, you have this gear, and then this gear is on a shaft like that. So as you turn the steering wheel here, this gear turns, which turns this gear, which pulls the cable. And as you can see, I shattered the box. Got 2 broken teeth. Just completely sheared clean off this. So I had to get another one and replace it. Just took a little bit to get it in, but I've got it put back together. I got it put back together a couple days ago, actually. And I haven't had time to go ride it because we've been working on the shop. So I don't want to risk waiting until tomorrow and the weather turning on me. So I'm gonna take advantage and go for an evening jet boat rip. And get, you know, another 2 hours of the work done, but hopefully you'll forgive me so I can go for a jet boat rip. I love boating, and it's nice. It's a nice reset. So I'm gonna do that, which means we'll have to pick this back up tomorrow and get started on the rest of it. Hopefully finishing all of it out, assuming there's no delays on getting the last couple items we need to do that. But ideally, we should be finishing them out in the next episode completely, you know, set up, hopefully. So that being said, I do want to say thank you guys for watching, and thanks for all your comments, questions, concerns, your input. Let me know what you think of the new lights, even though they are currently temporarily installed, and or the wiring is. Or the wiring to the wiring is. You know, most of it's right. Yeah, let me know if you got any input, any insight, any other questions, comments, concerns. But for now, that is going to be a wrap. I'm going to go jet boat. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.